Cool. So you should now see today's agenda on your screen. So I'll just do a brief introduction and then hand things off to today's host to talk about some of the important and upcoming EMV milestones and what ISVs need to know about compliance and certification of software applications. We'll share how EVO is addressing EMV for ISVs and what tools are available to help you navigate the upcoming requirements. So let's get started by introducing today's hosts. First we have Peter Osberg, who is the Senior Vice President of EVO Snap. So EVO Snap is the integrated payments division of EVO Payments International, which means that Peter is responsible for defining and executing EVO's integrated software strategy globally. Then we also have Darren Adelgren, who is the Vice President of Product and Customer Care here at EVO Snap, and he is responsible for defining and leading the product and integration strategy for EVO Snap and taking care of our ISV customers. So Peter, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Trevor, thank you. Thank you for everybody for joining today. We obviously have a very limited amount of time, so we'll be covering a lot of material in a rapid fashion. If anybody is interested in going deeper on what EVO is doing and how we're supporting ISVs on a global basis, we'll provide contact information so we can have one-on-one discussions. So real quick background, EVO Payments was founded in 1989. We're a 25-year-old payment processor acquirer. As you can see here, we support 130 currencies. We can do acquiring in 49 countries. We have 440,000 merchants and growing on a worldwide basis and do a lot of processing transactions. I think the objective of showing this slide is the fact that we have an enormous amount of background in EMV capabilities as well as omni-channel solutions, that provides the framework to present our discussion today. So first we're going to talk about EMV impact and timing. We have a very basic overview of the information that will be presented today. This obviously is a very deep business and technology topic. So I think the most important place to start is not in the technology solution, but to find the value around it based on the customers that we serve, that we all serve, to make sure that we are driving the right activities. So obviously the very first customer that we all serve are consumers. And why is EMV important to consumers? In North America and specifically in the U.S., there has been a lot of fraudulent activity that we've all experienced in the business as well as consumers. There has been a decrease of confidence in some of the payment processing between consumers and retailers just because of they've been issued new cards in the U.S. a few times over the last many years. Aside from the confidence level, we also know that we're inconveniencing consumers in this process. So getting issued new cards and the delay of getting those cards, as well as managing your recurring and subscription payments, becomes a time-consuming activity and a nuisance to consumers. So EMV, as we'll find out today, because of its greatly reduced risk capabilities, will help customers address these issues. From a merchant perspective, obviously there's a reduced fraud and reduced liability. We also know from our customers that when there is fraudulent behavior happening, which EMV greatly lessens, and that they do lose business in that process. And most of those merchants that lose business are in the subscription and recurring payment world, where they have to go back and try to collect payment information, which forces them to have another buying decision with their consumer. And then where most of our focus will be today is on the ISV. We're using the word ISV. You can say developer as well. The reality of the problem for a developer, if they're doing payment workflows in U.S. and Europe, that they have many different kind of workflows because EMV has not been adopted quite in the U.S. yet, as well as just a lack of knowledge of how to get a rapid and compliant solution to market. So EMV will help standardize these workflows on a global basis for ISVs. So we all know this is a very high-level overview of the status of EMV. There's conferences and seminars that go into all of these functions. So this just provides a very high-level overview. The one that we need to pay most attention to is the timeline coming this October when EMV liability shift is happening. We all understand that just because liability shift is happening, that nowhere means that every terminal will be an EMV cable product by October. We know that will be a road to hoe for all of us, but the advantages that EMV provides merchants, consumers, and ISVs, we're already seeing that adoption happening because of the liability shift this October. Everybody's aware if you look at the U.S. transactions, there's a very small percent that are EMV today. We all know that chip PIN cards or chip SIG cards are just starting to be delivered. Many people will be delivering them through the next 6 to 9 months as well. You'll see on the other side of the chart here that from a European perspective, card-present transactions, the majority of those are EMV transactions, and that has everything to do with increased security and decreased fraud from a consumer perspective. You'll see here on this chart here, this blows those pie charts out in greater detail. That obviously the U.S. is just starting this adventure, where other parts of the world have been investing in it quite a bit. Our experience from the EVO Payments International perspective in Europe would similarly reflect what we see in the European Zone 1, which, if you are not accepting a chip-enabled card, many retailers just will not accept that transaction. So I think we could have a whole seminar just on that first part about why EMV and who it impacts and when it's coming. We're trying to get to some very specific answers today with regards to how we're addressing the ISV market. To do so, I think it's really important to understand what the EMV standards are from a high level. So what I want Darren Adelgren to do right now is to briefly describe the 3 different levels of certification so we have a basis to have when we're talking about the ways that we're supporting these ISVs.
So the 3 different levels of certification, there's a level 1, level 2, and level 3. For level 1, that's going to cover your hardware and terminal certification, and it covers the physical components that interface to the card and within the terminal. Level 2 is going to encompass covering the actual kernel that's running on the terminal and is used between the card acceptance, between the chip and the terminal. Level 3 is probably the biggest thing that we're going to cover today, since level 1 and level 2 are typically covered by the hardware manufacturers themselves. Level 3 is that full end-to-end certification that includes the payment application, whether it be running directly on the terminal or within a point of sale that communicates to the terminal, to the acquirer processor, to the card schemes. For all ISVs, you're going to be required to have that level 3 certification in place before your merchants can go live.
So will you go to the next slide here? So from a very high level perspective, if you look at those level 1, level 2, level 3, this diagram is going to show really the entire EMV code certification. So you have to have the integrated POS, which will be our ISV, that has defined EMV compliant hardware devices that are certified to very specific payment processing platforms that then would have a unique EMV code certification to each network that you'll be supporting. And you can imagine as this problem set grows to other hardware and other versions of your software and other processing platforms, the burden on the ISV becomes great on the certification. And as we find out in North America, the cost and timing of this process, because this is a new process for many payment processors, ISVs, and hardware manufacturers in the U.S., it's a many-week process and thousands of dollars of cost to get this EMV code compliant solution in place. So the question really is that we've been getting asked by RSVs is understanding that this is a new process, that there's really, I would say, just growing of an understanding of what EMV actually means from an integrated software perspective, and that merchants are asking how they're going to be served. The really question becomes is how do we serve ISVs with different options? So to cover these two options, I think it's good to have an understanding of what EVO Snap is. So at the very beginning of the discussion, we talked about EVO Payments International as a very large processor acquirer on a global basis. EVO Snap, you could think of EVO Snap as an intelligent front end to EVO Payment International services and partner services on a global basis. So through one set of integration tools, whether they're web services APIs or the commerce driver, you had access to all the services that we have as a company on a global basis. So to show how this plays out from a specific EMV perspective, Darren is going to describe two different options. One option would be the web services API, and one option would be commerce driver.
So in this first option, you would be developing your own POS software, and you would be choosing your own hardware terminal that will interface with that, with your POS. In that process, you would use our direct web services APIs, where you would collect that EMV data from the terminal, pass it through your software directly to the EVO Snap front end. Then that would go on to the authorization networks. So if you're developing your software and you're going to choose maybe a couple of different platforms, so let's say iOS and Android, and one or two terminals, for each terminal and for each operating system that you're developing that on, you will need to perform that EMV code level 3 certification process. So that, if we look at the picture now, that's currently 4 certifications. As soon as you add another OS in there, now you're at 8 certifications. We can support this. Some of the advantages, it gives you flexibility, gives your merchants more flexible choices to pick from, and you have access to that full card data. It's important to note that EMV data is not an encrypted option. EMV data is sent in the clear typically unless you are incorporating a point-to-point encryption service directly with your terminal, your software in that chain. Some of the cons on this is it's going to take a long time to get certified. You have a higher risk or a higher scope of PCI, and the ongoing maintenance costs to keep that solution going.
So just to recap, this was the first option. This is the web services option. Darren said you get better control of the hardware you want to select. You get increased ability to manage the workflow. You have access to card data. Obviously, the cons are that it's increased timing costs from an EMV code certification. You have a greater PCI responsibility, and then the ongoing maintenance costs as you want to shift. The second option that we want to share with you today is a brand new, you could consider it a semi-integrated SDK that we call Commerce Driver, that Darren will describe this option as well right now.
So the EMV Commerce Driver, it's a rapid integration, it's pre-certified, and it gives you a reduced PCI scope. It's much like a printer driver where this pre-certified EMV SDK would install in line with your POS software application, which would add EMV transaction processing for Windows or iOS-based POS systems. And the Commerce Driver will facilitate all of the transactional communication between your POS, between the terminal, the Commerce Driver, and the Snap platform in a point-to-point encrypted fashion. This will reduce the PCI scope for a merchant as they are not transmitting, processing, or storing card data. In addition, since this Commerce Driver will be EMV Co certified with the pre-selected hardware we've chosen to support directly through that SDK, this reduces your effort and increases your time to market since you don't have to go through those certifications. So EvoSnap then takes on the burden of maintaining that product going forward as well.
This SDK that Darren's describing, the advantage that he just said, you get to market pretty quickly. You are leveraging the EMV Co work, the certification work that we have done on your behalf. You have decreased PCI responsibility just because we will be storing, transmitting, and processing on behalf of the merchant as part of the EvoSnap offering. The other value add, if you see in the far right, many of the ISVs that we work with want to expand both in an omni-channel, card present, card not present, including EMV on a global basis. Once EMV is complex enough when you're thinking about just adopting it in the U.S., the complexities greatly increase from a business perspective and a technology perspective if you want to expand to international markets. This EMV Commerce Driver for iOS and Windows will support Evo services on a global basis, which, as I said earlier, includes U.S. We're adding all the North American capabilities this summer, as well as our existing Europe capabilities. The disadvantages of the Commerce Driver will be you have to choose from one of our selected hardware that we've done the pre-certification with, as well as you have you don't have access to the card data, which is a positive and a negative. If somebody wants to put value-added workflow around the card data, you don't have access to actual card data. You have access to token of that tokenized card information. So Darren is going to go a little bit deeper into a high level of the specifications of the second option called Commerce Driver, and then we'll open it up for questions.
So the Commerce Driver would look similar to our direct web services integration, in the fact that the only thing that you would still be creating a transaction data object within your point of sale. So you'd be passing that data directly into that driver, so like your amount, your order number, typical details to facilitate that. The Commerce Driver then initiates the commands within the terminal, gathers that tender data or EMV data from the terminal, combines those two pieces together, and sends it off to the platform. We then return a response back to the Commerce Driver that will then pass all of the necessary details that are spelled out by EMV Co for receipt details directly back to your point of sale so you can complete your receipt for your customer. Initially, we have chosen to support the hardware there on the bottom left. 4 devices from Ingenico, 2 devices from Magtech, and then we have 2 devices that Evo has resourced for that. So we're covering multiple different options, whether that be chip and pen, chip and signature, or and different communications, whether that be through Bluetooth, USB, or Ethernet connections or wireless networking.
Okay, so there's, thanks, Darren. So I think, knowing that we're running a little bit close on time, we believe there will be a few questions, time for questions and answers here. So one of the questions that we received is, when will the Commerce Driver be available on the Android platform? That is a great question. We spent close to 6 months researching our sales channels and having discussions with our ISVs. We fully realize that we will eventually have to get to an Android solution. We are very aggressively working on both iOS and Windows products right now, and we should have an answer for when Android will be available middle to the end of second quarter this year. Another question we just received was, when can you start EMV enabling your application? So what I'd like to talk about those is by market and then by integration option. So if anybody's looking to begin a web services, option one, a web service integration for Europe, we are currently working with many ISVs on that today and are fully prepared to support those integration efforts. With the U.S. market on the option one, the web services option one, we have our pilot customers that are being identified now that we'll begin working with them on the web services integration in the next 4 weeks, which we're really excited about. With regards to the Commerce Driver option for Europe will be available middle of summer this year, and the Commerce Driver for EMV for the United States will be available at the end of the second quarter this year. Okay. We had a question about turnkey solutions such as Point. Somebody brought up a question about Point. Point is a partner of Evo Payments International and is built on top of EvoSnap currently. And for any partners that want to understand how to work with that platform with our acquiring capabilities, we're more than happy to facilitate those discussions. We just received a question about when will be available in Canada. So everybody knows that, doing payment processing in the Canadian market is a unique effort in itself because of local debit scheme, as well as the network's increased penetration with regards to credit debit. We are fully committed to providing our chip-enabled and credit debit processing in that market. It's an active project that we are working on, and that will be available in the end of this summer. Somebody just asked a question about hardware manufacturers that are supported on the EMV Commerce Driver. Obviously, this can be answered in a unique way based on market, on specific models. The Commerce Drivers, out of the box in phases for both the U.S. and Canada, will support Magtech, Ingenico, and an EMV sourced. These will have a few different options that will include both chip signature and obviously chip pin for European markets, and they'll have different communication methods, whether that's through Bluetooth, wireless, and or through a USB connection. There was a question asked about fraud with regards to card present transactions and data breaches. Obviously, that's a very large question. It is not a question that I have the data on me today, but that is something that if we we can follow up directly with that person based on information from our info security group here at EVO Payments International. We just had another question here. Somebody asked, how can they engage EVO Snap to participate in a pilot program? We'll be sending a follow-up email to all participants. We have a handful of ISVs that we're currently working in both markets with on web services, and we'll start the commerce driver discussions in just a few weeks from now on identifying those first pilot customers and getting the market with first mover advantages. So you can simply respond to that email if you want to be part of our pilot programs, unique by region. So we just had a question, the difference between, other than devices, what differentiates EVO Snap Gateway, it sounds like. So it's a good question. We're technically not a gateway. We're really just an intelligent front end to EVO payment services on a global basis and EVO partner services on a worldwide basis. We have 3 different integration options, whether they're the commerce driver, hosted payments, or the web services. Part of our advantage is because we're the payment processor, we're the acquirer, we're essentially the intelligent front end, that we can support our ISVs and merchants on a global basis without having to work with other third parties, which at the end of the day is generally better from a merchant perspective, from customer service and business management. We had a question here about sending the PowerPoint, so we'll be following it up with additional information, including pieces of this PowerPoint to the attendees as well. We'll also be publishing this at evosnap.com. Okay, unless there's any other questions, if there's other questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can address those uniquely by person. We're here to support ISVs on a global basis. We're really excited about the adoption of EMV for all of our customers' sake, and feel like it's really a greenfield opportunity for ISVs that are being proactive and innovative and thinking about it from a not only EMV Co and a PCI perspective, but also from a global approach. So we want to thank you for your time today and look forward to hearing from people with additional questions should they come up.
Thank you, Peter and Darren.